Hello again, Internet. So, as I said before in my intro video, I am not a topical kind of guy. That being said, I think I can talk about E3 without worry because who doesn't like to speculate on new video games? I mean, we are talking about new games I probably will be playing in the future. So, I'm gonna discuss 3 predictions for Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony at E3. I will then hit about 3 side predictions of studios independent of the console titans and get into detail. So without further ado, let's dive in. So for Nintendo, I think the first big prediction I am looking at is probably a Smash Bros. For the Switch. Whether that's a port or a brand new Smash Bros. Game, I'm leaning towards the port side more, and I'm pretty idealistic about the whole thing. It's not looking like Nintendo's going to be very supportive of the Smash scene, and I'd love to see it grow and flourish more, and have Nintendo be more supportive of it. And to have it on the Switch and to see that at tournaments in the future would be rad. The second prediction for Nintendo I'm looking at is a new Pokemon game for the Switch. I know that we just had a Pokemon Direct the other day, and they talked about Ultra Sun and Moon, and they talked about Pokemon Tournament DX port for the Switch, but I think that that's not all we're going to get for Pokemon on the Switch. And the only reason I say that is that, I mean, it would be alienating to Pokemon fans to create the Nintendo Switch that is and it's a mobile console, but not have a true blue Pokemon RPG available for it. Now, if they were going to release it, I think it would be to the tune of Sun and Moon, and have those featured in it. I mean, Sun and Moon is still relatively new in generation speaking on the game, but I would also say that they are I mean, I won't say they probably will, but I would say that it could be possible to have a remastered version of Red, Blue, or Gold or Silver, or some previous generation available for the Switch. I think that would be super cool to play like a high def, like super 3D, like with introduced like new mechanics and systems of like Red and Blue or Gold and Silver or something like that. Red, Ruby, Sapphire, you name it. And I think a lot of other people would like that as well. The last thing that I'm going to say on Nintendo, number 3 here, is going to be, hold your horses before you attack me on this, F-Zero or Metroid as an announced new game. Both titles are pretty well overdue, and Nintendo would be stupid to not make something for either of those IPs. But who am I kidding? Because Nintendo doesn't listen to anybody and probably is going to be that dumb and not care about either of those IPs. So moving on to Sony, I think that Sony is probably, and for my first prediction, will challenge the Scorpio. I think they're going to announce some sort of new console. Now, this is a 50-50 for me. I think honestly it's down to a coin flip, and whether or not how far they are in the development process and how comfortable they are. Sony is usually more of the type to announce something as it gets closer to fruition, whereas Microsoft is kind of wild and will just say whatever as soon as they think that they're doing something. So we'll see how that comes out. But last year the Scorpio was announced, and it would be stupid for for Sony to not challenge Microsoft on a new console generation, a new console race. The earlier they start marketing, the earlier they start creating hype, the better for them. Now, if we're gonna look over, a new console, it could be the PlayStation 5, but I mean they could just call it PlayStation New or something different, like just weird off the wall. I mean, eventually, how long are they going to add numbers before it just starts getting old? I think with this next one, because 5 is a good round number, I think they're going to call it something different. And that's probably going to be my most likely prediction for E3. It makes so much sense on a marketing level for them to challenge the Scorpio. Moving on to number 2 for Sony, we got to see some Death Stranding gameplay. I know this is far-fetched because Kojima is taking his sweet time, and because he's the artist that he is, probably will not have much to show, but I'm dreaming and crossing my fingers that we'll see some gameplay available for Death Stranding. And as Kojima is loyal to Sony, and Death Stranding was announced in the Sony presentation last year, this will probably be in the Sony feature this year. The world is waiting to see what the game actually is, and I'm looking forward to the game myself. I'd say if I could describe the game, it's enigmatic in nature, but erotic in theory. Yeah, so the awkward jokes aside, moving on to the new FromSoft game for my third prediction for Sony. Dark Souls is over. They said, hey, that's it for Dark Souls. The Ring City was the last DLC. They're not doing anything else. They said they're in the middle of developing new IPs. Anyone knows what that means? I don't know. But the only game to come outside of the Soul series in a great while from FromSoft is Bloodborne, and that was a PlayStation exclusive. So I'm thinking if they do announce their new IP, it would be through the Sony presentation, and that's the thing that makes the most sense, at least to me anyways. Alright, and moving on to Microsoft, I apologize. I don't know what to expect from Microsoft. They don't really have a lot in the way of IPs. They have Halo and Gears of War, and a few things here and there, Rareware. But it's not looking too bright in the future of actual games. I think they've kind of taken the hardware approach and said, hey, we'll just have decent games that are on every console, that are multi-platform releases, and have a couple of our small IPs that are big boy IPs. And I think a lot of that is that they early on Microsoft attached themselves so much to shooters that now shooters are on the backslide, that they're kind of just well, there goes all our IPs. So they have to, I think, release a new IP. That's going to be my first prediction. They need to have a new IP lined up to announce that's going to be a strong powerhouse, or else they're just going to crumble to Sony. I mean, not obviously right away, but they need some answer to that. Sony needs an answer to Microsoft through hardware. Microsoft needs an answer to Sony with software. They need games. My second prediction is going to be the Scorpio's name and details. I think they're going to say, okay, Project Scorpio is a code name. Here's the actual name to it. They're going to unveil it, pull away the curtain, say, and here's some more details. They might have a new tech demo to display the performance and power of some game that might be in development for the console. And that's pretty much as far as it goes in my imagination for what they would show at E3 for that. And then the third one is going to be really far-fetched, but it would be cool to think that this is a possibility. Now, with Yooka-Laylee releasing and Rareware being a property of Microsoft, I think that Yooka-Laylee did well enough that Microsoft will probably feel the need to push Rareware to have an answer to Yooka-Laylee. That being said, maybe we'll see a Banjo 3E, or maybe not. I'm not sure. Another thing that I'm not too sure about, but could be a possibility, is since Microsoft dismantled Lionhead, they sold off everything except for Fable. They did not sell Fable's IP, and I can see why. Fable is one of the few strong powerhouse IPs that Microsoft has in its possession. And I think that they might bring Fable back. I think they might bring a Fable revival and just say, no Peter Molyneux, no Lionhead. We're bringing in a good developer to fix Fable. And they might go back to the roots, go back to the original Fable, and start from the ground up and just say, here is a brand new Fable game with the original Fable in mind, or something like that. It would be really cool, far-fetched, but cool. And so, wrapping up on the Microsoft, I've got a few bonus predictions, basically for Bethesda, CD Projekt Red, and maybe some PC gaming exclusives. But basically, I think Bethesda, the first bonus prediction is Bethesda's going to show us something. Whether it's a new game or a new DLC or something, they have to have something for us. And I don't think it's going to be an Elder Scrolls. It would be amazing. It would be a huge surprise. And nobody would shut up about it for eternity. But I'm probably wrong. I don't think that an Elder Scrolls game is going to come. Fallout 4 is done. Yeah, I don't think they're going to do anything else for Fallout 4. Maybe like one small DLC left. Or maybe like a large story DLC. I don't know. There may be a Fallout 4 DLC, but I highly believe it's unlikely. Fallout 4 is kind of on the backslide. And Prey seems to have done slightly well, and I think they're going to announce DLC for it. Moving on, CD Projekt Red is pretty much done with The Witcher, for the most part, at least in main titles. They do have their Gwent, and I think they might pull away the curtain and say, here's the official release day of Gwent, here's where you can download it, or buy it, or whatever. And, I think they're going to talk about Cyberpunk 2077, and maybe, because The Witcher's done, they have this huge studio, I think they're working on a new IP. I think they're working on another IP, and it's going to be a huge project. I don't know what it could be. CD Projekt Red comes from all different directions these days, and I don't think they're very predictable, but I do see something brilliant coming from them in the future. And my last prediction for E3 2017 is some random mind-blowing PC exclusive of the year. Like something that just comes from like either an independent developer or a small-time developer or somebody that's going to be a PC exclusive or something like that, at least for the now, and it's just going to blow everybody's minds. Like the PC market, it comes from so many random directions. There's so many different ideas and creative things coming out of the PC market for Steam games or what have you, that I think there's gonna be something that's just gonna blow stuff out of the water. Now, I'm not saying it's gonna be something that comes out and overtakes AAA titles, because that's not the case. There's the formula of AAA titles is going to dominate the gaming market for quite some time now. But I would like to see creative minds with the power of AAA development in the future, and I think that there's going to be a game that shows the potential of that this year unveiled in E3 2017. And with that being said, I don't know what kind of game it could be. Maybe a proper space game. I think that the space games that have been coming out are, some of them are okay, some of them are not okay. Names aside, I don't think we have a super great space game that is on the way other than Star Citizen. And I think that somebody's going to pull away the sheets and say, here's a space game, because space games seem to be strong in the market right now. Space exploration, what have you. So Star Citizens is on the way, but I think that there's going to be another game that gets unveiled that'll be an answer to that, a competitor, if you will. And that pretty much wraps up my E3 2017 predictions for the year, and it's anybody's guess what the big reveals will be unless a leak spoils it for all of us. So just hang tight, and I'll see you on the other side to analyze what we've been told about. Cheers!